Mel Kiper has a trade back at 31 in his most recent mock draft. Let's go! What is up, Bengals fam? It's your boy Mike coming back at you with another Who Daily. I wanted to talk to you about Mel Kiper's 2-round mock draft. I believe this came out. When did this came out? Now I just exited out of my shit.
You want to start this over?
I can edit it. Yep, Mel Kiper's latest mock draft. 2 rounds, came out today. Big thing going on here, guys. Something we don't do a lot. Maybe it's done it maybe once in this channel this offseason. Trade back out of the 31st pick. I don't do it in my mock drafts because the Bengals typically don't do it in real life. As in, they do trade back. They absolutely do trade back, but it's usually into the second or third rounds. Rarely do they trade back, but rarely do they ever pick at 31 either. So I think the logic here, it seems like what he's getting at is basically you already have a late round, basically what amounts to a third-round pick, an early third-round pick as your second-round pick. So pick 63. You'll probably be able to trade back 5 or 6 spots, pick up an extra pick later in the draft, and still get somebody that you're targeting. So in this case, Mel Kiper has that person being Kaiir Elam. The only thing I have to say here that gives me pause is in his mock draft, Mel Kiper has the New York Jets trading up with the Bengals. So the Bengals trading back with the Jets 5 spots, but sitting there, the player that the Jets pick is Tyler Linderbaum, who is the player that everyone's screaming about for the Bengals. If he's there, you got to pick him. If he's there, you got to pick him, and for good reason. They're saying that he has a ceiling. He has the athletic testing and the tape that makes, and the on-field production that makes you think his ceiling is essentially all pro, right? So sit there and pick the all pro center, right? That's what Bengals fans are saying. That completes your O-line transformation right there. You no longer have to start any question marks on your O-line, really. Just sit there and pick Linderbaum. That's the common knowledge. However, the Bengals still also have a need for corner. They have 2 older corners, essentially. Chidobe Awuzie is not that. They're not old. What I mean by old is they're going to have to deal with cornerback contracts coming up soon. And there's Eli Apple is your number 2 corner. If your goal is to make another Super Bowl run, you'd like to see that upgraded, right? At least give him competition and a guy that's going to take his job in the future as he progresses and gets better. And that's who Kaiir Elam is. So in this scenario, basically what you have is Tyler Linderbaum makes it all the way to pick 31, and instead of taking him, the Bengals trade back with the Jets and end up taking 5 picks later, take Kaiir Elam, the corner out of Florida. And look, I've done plenty of mock drafts where Linderbaum's not there. There aren't really any other picks that make a lot of sense, and Kaiir Elam's sitting there, and I've picked him at 31. So if you're telling me you can, I would be all for this if you were to tell me if it just wasn't Tyler Linderbaum. Like it's just tough for me to swallow the pill of, man, this is a potential all-pro. And don't get me wrong, Elam's ceiling is also very high. I don't think it's as high as Linderbaum's, but his ceiling is perennial Pro Bowler, maybe basically considered among the elite corners in the league for the next 10 years. I mean, that's his ceiling, but we're talking about a Hall of Fame level ceiling for Linderbaum, and I know that's crazy to say. But just going off of how, like, this is the kind of prospect at center that you just don't see very often. And it makes me think of the Cincinnati Bengals franchise very first pick. Their very first round pick ever in 1968. It was a center. Just saying, sometimes you build the team around the guys that touch the ball the most. The center touches the ball on every play. Every single play, just like the quarterback does. So, it's tough for me to sit here and say, man, I like it on its face. If you were to say, hey, the Bengals trade back and then they trade back, pick up an extra 4th round pick, and they're able, and it's an early 4th round pick, and they're able to still get Kaiir Elam. Like that scenario by itself, you boys on board for that. But it's but sitting there is Tyler Linderbaum. You know what I mean? Like it's the drop off from Linderbaum to the next best center in this draft, I think, is really, really, really big. The drop off from Kyer Elam to, say, Andrew Booth Jr., not nearly as big. The ceiling's different, but I don't know. You guys let me know what you think. You guys, would you take this trade? Would you say, if you're sitting there, you're the Bengals GM, you're sitting there, you have Tyler Linderbaum sitting there, and you also have Kyer Elam sitting there, and you get a call from the New York Jets, whoever the New York Jets GM is, and he says, "Hey, want to do a trade?" I mean, what are you doing? I mean, are you going to sit there? It's so tough for me because, the offensive line has been the kind of most obvious. The offensive line has been the most obvious weak spot of this team for, I don't know, since they traded away Andrew Whitworth. So for me to sit here and say, yeah, pass on the first round offensive lineman in order to pick the corner 5 picks later. Like, it's a pickle, man. I get it, man. If Mel Kiper Jr.'s plan here was to make, Bengals fans' heads explode with this scenario, like, he's done it. Because go on Twitter. If you don't follow me on Twitter, by the way, you definitely should. I'll put that down here. There's the show. There's my Twitter. There's the show Twitter. And let me know what you guys think about this. Because if you go on Twitter, all you see is, at least the guys I follow: Coach Mike Minnick, Bengals Sands, the Locked On Bengals guys, Jake and James, Joe Goodberry. These guys unanimously, Tyler Linderbaum's a dude. They also all like Kyer Elam, right? And so do I. And so, I just think if you ask them all, I think I saw a Twitter poll going around of, if you were the Bengals, and I think it was this exact scenario. If you're the Bengals and Tyler Linderbaum and Kyer Elam are sitting there, who you taking? Tyler Linderbaum won the poll, so Bengals fans agree. But I'm willing to bet if you asked, the Bengals social media influencers, the guys I just listed off, I would be willing to bet all of them would take Linderbaum at this point. You know what I mean? Just because of, man, you watch him on tape and he just looks different. And the fact that he tested like he did, right? He came into the combine. So the only there are two main knocks against Linderbaum you'll hear from most people. It's a size issue, right? Basically, he played at a playing weight of about 285, 290 in college, right? And also length. He's not a very long guy, right? Now, you can't do anything about the length. Your arms are the length they are. But he came into the combine at 300 pounds plus, I think it was 302 or something like that. Or not combine, it was a pro day. At his pro day, he came in at 302 and put up elite center numbers. Number 1 in the class from a RAS score perspective. Top, 95th percentile all-time center RAS score. So he answered the questions he can answer. The Bengals, by the way, don't have the same thresholds around length for their offensive linemen as a lot of other teams do. I think they will, and you can see that by the guys that are on the team right now. They're their best offensive lineman last year. His number one knock coming out, Jonah Williams, if you guys remember, was length. He didn't have super long arms. He was still rated the best tackle available in that draft. He was still the first tackle taken, and rightfully so, I think. But the Bengals just don't. Short arms are not going to take you off their first round draft board. This is what I'm saying. And if they're not worried about short arms, that's literally the only question mark remaining for Tyler Linderbaum are these short arms. If they don't care about it, then he's probably super high on their board, and I would imagine he's over Kyer Elam, because for me, Kyer Elam has more question marks at his position. Kyer Elam, essentially, he's a very sticky man corner. You really like to see that, right? But he gets a little antsy trying to make tackles. Essentially, he's not a super great tackler, and you can't really tell how good his instincts are in zone all the time. He doesn't. Because essentially, when you got a corner like Kyer Elam on your team, you ask him to cover the best player, and that's kind of it. You just do that in college. But at the pros, the Bengals are all NFL teams run a mixture of zone and man coverages, right? So you got to be able to do a little bit of both. You can't, because if a good quarterback will know which corners on the field are poor in man coverage and poor in zone coverage, and if he's able to diagnose pre-snap what you're doing and knows that he's got zone or man, he's going to find that weak spot and attack it. So I just think that the floor is very high for both of these players. I think it's higher for Linderbaum, and I also think his ceiling's higher. But I think they'll both be very good players. Let me know what you think in the comments. Tweet at me. Get at your boy. Stay tuned, because next week, guess what? I got a guest. 2 guests. One of them confirmed. Mike Santagana, your other boy Mike. At Bengals Sands. You know him from the Locked On Bengals podcast. He's been on the show. He was on the show last year during the offseason. He's going to come back and hang out. We're going to get his opinion on stuff like this. But until next time, Bengals fans, I've been Mike. This has been Who Daily. See ya.